My dad left his entire estate to me in his will, and now my siblings and extended family are taking me to court, claiming I manipulated him. I never thought my family would be the type to end up in a courtroom, but here we are. I guess it's true what they say, nothing brings out the worst in people like money. It all started a few months ago when my dad passed away. Losing him was one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through. He wasn't just my father, he was my best friend, my mentor, and the person I looked up to the most in this world. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that he's gone, but I don't even have the space to grieve properly because of the absolute circus my family has turned this into. My dad was a self-made man. He built his business from the ground up, starting with nothing but a loan from a friend and a dream. Over the years, he turned that small investment into a thriving construction company. He worked hard his entire life, often at the expense of his health and personal relationships. But he did it all to provide for us, for me and my siblings. My mom died when I was young, so it was just Dad raising us, and I've always been incredibly proud of what he accomplished. I never imagined that his hard-earned fortune would become a source of so much pain and bitterness. After Dad passed, I was the one tasked with handling his affairs. My siblings, my brother Matt and my sister Hannah, didn't really want anything to do with it. They've never been very involved in the family business. Matt's a bit of a drifter, always hopping from one job to another, and Hannah moved across the country years ago and has been focused on her own career and family. So, it fell to me to take care of everything, which I was fine with. I've been working alongside Dad at the company for the past 10 years, so I knew the ins and outs of both the business and his personal finances. Things started to get complicated when we had the reading of Dad's will. I wasn't expecting much drama, my dad was always pretty straightforward. I assumed he'd leave something to each of us, maybe with a little extra going to Matt because he's always been a bit of a mess financially. But when the lawyer started reading the will, my jaw practically hit the floor. Dad left everything to me. I mean everything. The business, the house, the savings, the investments, every single penny. Matt and Hannah were mentioned in the will, but only in the sense that they were not receiving anything beyond some personal mementos. The lawyer explained that Dad had specifically stated that he wanted me to have everything because I was the only one involved in the business, and he trusted me to handle things responsibly. He felt that since Matt and Hannah had never shown any interest in the company, it didn't make sense for them to be involved now. I was stunned. I knew my dad trusted me, but this was more than I'd ever imagined. I didn't ask for this, I didn't even know he was planning to do this. But as I looked over at my brother and sister, I could see the shock and anger on their faces. And that's when everything started to unravel. Matt was the first to speak up. "This has to be some kind of mistake," he said, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "Dad wouldn't just cut us out like this." The lawyer, a calm, composed man who'd been my dad's attorney for years, shook his head. "I assure you, Mr. Sanders, there is no mistake. Your father was very clear in his wishes. He wanted his entire estate to go to your brother." Hannah looked at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Did you know about this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I shook my head. "No, I swear. I had no idea." But it didn't matter what I said. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and there was no going back. Matt stormed out of the office, and Hannah quickly followed, leaving me sitting there with the lawyer, still in shock. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to explain, to make them understand that I didn't ask for this, but they wouldn't listen. They were too angry, too hurt. And I guess I can't blame them. The days following the will reading were a blur of tension and awkward conversations. Matt and Hannah refused to speak to me, and when they did, it was through gritted teeth and terse messages. I tried to give them some space, hoping they just needed time to process everything. But things only got worse. A few weeks later, I got a call from a lawyer. Matt and Hannah were suing me, claiming that I had manipulated Dad into changing his will. They were convinced that I had somehow pressured him into leaving everything to me, cutting them out entirely. They accused me of taking advantage of Dad's declining health, saying that I'd been scheming behind their backs for years. I was floored. I couldn't believe they actually thought I was capable of something like that. I tried to call them, to talk to them directly and explain my side, but they wouldn't take my calls. They wanted nothing to do with me. I reached out to other family members, hoping they could help mediate, but most of them were either taking Matt and Hannah's side or staying out of it altogether. It felt like I was being painted as the villain in some twisted family drama, and I had no idea how to fix it. The court battle has been going on for months now. My siblings have pulled out all the stops, digging up every piece of dirt they can find, trying to make me look like a greedy, manipulative bastard. They've been dredging up old family arguments, things that happened decades ago, trying to paint a picture of me as some kind of mastermind who's been plotting this for years. They even brought in a doctor to suggest that Dad wasn't of sound mind when he made the changes to his will, even though there's plenty of evidence to the contrary. The worst part is, it's tearing our family apart. My aunts, uncles, and cousins have all been dragged into this mess, taking sides and throwing around accusations. Some of them believe Matt and Hannah, convinced that I must have done something to sway Dad's decision. Others are staying neutral, but even that feels like a betrayal when I'm the one under attack. And then there's the business. With all this chaos, it's been nearly impossible to focus on running the company. Our employees are starting to get worried, sensing the tension and uncertainty in the air. I've had to take a step back from my day-to-day duties to deal with all the legal proceedings, and it's taking a toll on everything. I'm worried about the future of the company, about how we're going to recover from this, both financially and reputationally. I wish I could go back to before all this happened, before Dad passed away and everything went to hell. I miss him every single day, and I wish I could talk to him, ask him why he made the choices he did. I've been racking my brain, trying to remember any conversations we had that might explain why he left everything to me. I know he trusted me with the business, but this feels like so much more than that. It's like he knew something I didn't, something he never got the chance to tell me. I've tried to reach out to Matt and Hannah again, to explain that I didn't know, that I never asked for any of this. But every attempt has been met with silence or outright hostility. They've convinced themselves that I'm the enemy, and there's no changing their minds. I'm at my wit's end, trying to figure out how to make things right, but I don't even know where to start. The court case is dragging on, and the costs are piling up. I've already spent a small fortune on legal fees, and it looks like it's going to get worse before it gets better. My lawyer says we have a strong case, that there's no evidence of wrongdoing on my part, and that the will is legally sound. But that doesn't change the fact that my siblings are determined to fight this to the bitter end. I never wanted any of this. I would have been happy to split everything equally with them, to make sure we all got a fair share. But Dad's will was clear, and I feel like I have a responsibility to honor his wishes. I just wish I could understand why he made the choices he did, why he left them out so completely. I've gone through every document, every letter, looking for some clue, but there's nothing. Just a simple statement of his wishes, written in his own hand, saying that he wanted me to have it all. I'm trying to stay strong, to keep my head up and not let this break me, but it's hard. Every day feels like a battle, and I'm so tired. I'm tired of the accusations, the bitterness, the constant fighting. I'm tired of being the villain in my own family, of being blamed for something I didn't do. I miss my brother and sister. I miss our family being whole. But I don't know if there's any way to go back to that now. The worst part is, I can't even properly mourn my dad. I can't sit with my grief and process everything that's happened because I'm too busy dealing with lawyers and court dates and accusations. I feel like I've lost not just my father, but my entire family. And I don't know if there's any coming back from that. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know if we'll ever be able to repair the damage that's been done. But I'm trying to hold on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to move forward. That someday, my siblings will realize that I never wanted to hurt them, that I'm not the monster they think I am. Until then, I guess I'll keep fighting. For my dad's memory, for the business he built, and for the chance that maybe, someday, we can be a family again. I remember the last few weeks of Dad's life, how he seemed distant but determined, like he was wrestling with some big decision. I thought it was just his illness making him tired, but now I wonder if he was thinking about all of this. If he was trying to figure out how to protect the legacy he'd built without tearing the family apart. I wish I could go back to those days, sit by his bedside, and ask him what was on his mind. Maybe then I'd understand why he made the choices he did. After the will reading, I found myself combing through Dad's study, looking for anything that might give me some insight. He was a meticulous man, every file in its place, every document neatly organized. I found old letters he'd written to my mom, notes from business meetings, even the original loan document that helped him start his company. But nothing about the will. Nothing that explained why he'd chosen to leave everything to me and nothing to Matt and Hannah. Then, one night, I found a letter. It was tucked away in a drawer in his desk, addressed to me. My hands were shaking as I opened it, and my heart pounded in my chest. Maybe this would be the explanation I'd been looking for, the missing piece that would make all of this make sense. The letter was short, just a few lines, but it hit me like a punch to the gut. Son, I know this will be hard for you. I've thought long and hard about this decision, and I believe it's the right one. You've always been the one who cared about the business, who cared about keeping our family's legacy alive. I trust you to do what's right. Whatever happens, know that I love you, and I'm proud of you. Take care of them for me. Love, Dad. I sat there for a long time, just staring at the letter. He trusted me. He wanted me to take care of them. But how was I supposed to do that when they thought I was the enemy? When they were so determined to fight me on every front? I didn't know what to do with that letter. I considered showing it to Matt and Hannah, but I knew they'd just see it as more evidence of my supposed manipulation. And so, the court battle dragged on. I was deposed multiple times, and every time, Matt's lawyer tried to twist my words, to make it sound like I was the one in the wrong. Hannah sat there, stone-faced, while Matt glared at me like he wanted to leap across the table. It was like being in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. In the meantime, the business was suffering. Our suppliers started to get nervous, our employees were on edge, and even some of our clients began to back away, not wanting to get caught up in our family drama. I was trying to keep everything together, to keep the ship afloat, but it felt like I was bailing water with a teaspoon. I tried to make peace with Matt and Hannah. I offered to split some of the inheritance with them, even though Dad's will was clear. I told them I didn't want the money, that I just wanted us to be a family again. But they refused. They were convinced that I was lying, that I was trying to buy them off. They said they wouldn't rest until they got what was rightfully theirs. As the court date loomed, I felt like I was running out of options. I was exhausted, emotionally and physically. I wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating. I was just trying to survive, to get through each day without breaking down. My lawyer kept telling me we had a strong case, but that didn't make me feel any better. Even if we won, I'd still lose. I'd lose my brother and sister, my family. And that's a loss I don't know if I can recover from. The night before our final court date, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Dad, about that letter, about everything that had happened since he died. I found myself driving to the cemetery in the middle of the night, standing by his grave in the cold, dark silence. I talked to him, like I used to when I was a kid, pouring my heart out, asking him what I should do. I don't know if I was expecting an answer, some sign from beyond the grave, but all I got was silence. I stood there for what felt like hours, just staring at his headstone, hoping for some kind of clarity. Eventually, I left, still as confused and broken as when I arrived. The next day in court, Matt and Hannah looked ready for battle. I was numb. I felt like I was watching everything happen from outside my body, like it wasn't even real. Their lawyer made his final arguments, painting me as a greedy, manipulative villain who'd tricked our dying father into leaving me everything. My lawyer did his best to counter, to present the facts, but I could see the doubt in the judge's eyes. When it was my turn to speak, I felt a lump in my throat. I told the truth. I told them I didn't know why Dad had done what he did, that I hadn't asked for this, that I'd give anything to have my family back. I told them about the letter, about how much I missed him, about how much I missed Matt and Hannah, even now, even after everything. I could see Hannah's eyes soften, just a bit, but Matt was still glaring at me, his jaw set in a hard line. The judge looked between us, and I could see he was weighing his decision carefully. He called a recess, and we all filed out of the courtroom. I don't know how long we waited, but it felt like an eternity. Finally, we were called back in. The judge's face was unreadable as he delivered his verdict. He ruled in my favor, saying there was no evidence of undue influence, that the will was valid and Dad's wishes were clear. There was a moment of silence, and then Matt exploded. He shouted that it wasn't fair, that I'd manipulated everything, that I'd gotten exactly what I wanted. Hannah was crying, and I could see the betrayal in her eyes, the hurt. I wanted to reach out to them, to make them understand, but they turned and walked out, leaving me standing there, alone. I don't know what happens next. I've won the legal battle, but I've lost my family in the process. I don't know if we'll ever be able to repair the damage that's been done, if they'll ever see me as anything other than the villain in this story. But I have to keep going. I have to keep fighting. For Dad's memory, for the business he built, and for the hope that maybe, someday, we can find a way to be a family again.